Australia pauses funding to a key UN agency in Gaza over alleged links to Hamas attacks. Nothing to fear. The Premier talks down the election challenge of coming up against Basil Zemes. Australia stunned as the West Indies pull off one of Test cricket's great upsets. And Daniil Medvedev's flying start to the Australian Open men's final. Good evening, Briana Shepherd with ABC News. Australia and 8 other countries have suspended funding the main UN agency providing aid in Gaza after allegations emerged some staff were involved in the October 7 terrorist attacks. The agency's chief has hit back, describing the funding pause as a collective form of punishment against Palestinians. It comes as a deal edges closer that could see a 2-month pause in fighting and secure the release of the remaining hostages.
Anger on the streets of Tel Aviv as Israeli police block the protesting crowds. Mounted officers confront the fury. Some are wrestled to the ground. The protesters, including the families of over 100 hostages still in Gaza, calling on their leaders to resign. They say their government isn't doing enough to bring their loved ones home.
We need to bring them back home now. We don't have time anymore.
Hamas has released new vision of Israeli hostages filmed under duress in Gaza. 1 nurse and 2 19-year-old soldiers kidnapped on October 7. There is some new hope. US-led negotiators are edging closer to an agreement that would see Israel pause fighting for 2 months in exchange for the release of all the hostages. But until any deal is struck, the misery for the people in Gaza continues. The biggest UN agency providing life-saving relief has come under scrutiny. UNRWA has been forced to sack several members of its staff for alleged involvement in the Hamas terrorist attack of October 7. Israeli intelligence has reportedly produced evidence that shows the UNRWA staff providing use of its vehicles and facilities. The allegations are being investigated, but Australia, along with 8 other countries, has immediately suspended funding for the agency. Foreign Minister Penny Wong labelled the allegations deeply concerning. UNRWA's chief has hit back, saying the withholding of funding is shocking and amounts to a form of collective punishment. More than 80% of Gazans have fled their homes and they're still on the move.
We've been displaced for around 115 days, and now suddenly flyers dropped saying that certain blocks should evacuate immediately. In such weather and with little kids, where can we go?
UNRWA is pleading with countries to resume funding, warning a lifeline to 2 million people is being cut.
As he faces calls to resign, Israel's Prime Minister is also facing considerable pressure from the White House to ease his military campaign in Gaza. Here's Global Affairs editor John Lyons.
The pressure on Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu here in Jerusalem is extraordinary. He's under pressure from the families of the hostages in Gaza who fear that their relatives could be killed by Israel's saturation bombing. He's under pressure from President Biden, facing re-election, who risks losing the Arab-American vote in 3 key swing states. And he's under pressure from the people here, the Israeli public, who are increasingly asking, what is this war actually achieving? Something has to give.
Iran-backed Houthis have fired on an American warship in a major escalation of the conflict in the Red Sea. Video has also emerged of a British-linked oil tanker being struck, with the US warning of a broader conflict erupting in the region.
A fire erupts on board a British-linked oil tanker after it's struck by a Houthi missile. With 23 crew on board, the Marlin Luanda issues a distress call, with deep concern for its flammable cargo.
We had actually lost the hope that we won't be able to fight this fire.
The Indian Navy responds with backup from the US, getting the fire under control after several hours.
These guys were really tough They have really done a tremendous job, and hats off to the Indian Navy.
It's the latest ship to be struck by the Iranian-backed Houthis, who've been attacking vessels transiting through the Red Sea in support of Palestinians in Gaza. The Houthis say this latest attack is in response to American-British aggression and follows retaliatory airstrikes from both countries inside Yemen just weeks ago.
Course 200, check course 207.
An American destroyer patrolling the Gulf of Aden, USS Carney, was also targeted but shot down the projectile. The incident marking the first time a US warship has been directly attacked.
We can't predict exactly how any one of these groups is going to respond. Do they want a broader conflict? Do you want us in a full-scale war?
The US is downplaying the escalation, and China is urging Iran to help rein in the attacks, as the Middle East grapples with its worst maritime conflict in decades. Tom Joyner, ABC News, Jerusalem.
People in Germany have taken part in mass demonstrations against the rise of right-wing extremism in the country's biggest wave of protests for years. The marches were triggered by a report a right-wing party was discussing the deportation of millions of immigrants, including some with German citizenship. Tens of thousands of people marched in Dusseldorf as Germany marked Holocaust Memorial Day. Demonstrators say they're looking to rein in support for the right-wing AfD party, which is currently polling in second place nationally. A neo-Nazi group has gathered in Sydney for the third time in as many days. About 20 men dressed in black arrived in the city's north around 9 o'clock this morning. They were dispersed by police a short while later. Police say public safety orders have been issued to some members of the group, banning them from entering several local government areas until midnight. It follows another similar incident on Australia Day when officers intercepted a Sydney train after more than 60 men boarded carrying a neo-Nazi sign. The New South Wales Premier says those involved will be publicly exposed.
The police have the ability to unmask you, so in front of your family, your friends, your employers, co-workers, you'll be exposed as a massive racist. This is obviously distressing for many people to see this fascist, ridiculous behaviour on New South Wales streets.
I've never seen experiences. I've lived here for 11 years. Never ever experienced this kind of thugs in my community.
The Prime Minister says he's confident the revised Stage 3 tax cuts will pass Parliament without further tweaks. People earning between $45,000 and $150,000 will get an extra $800 a year compared to the previous plan. Those on $200,000 will still get a cut, but it will be roughly halved, down to $4,500. The changes still need to pass Parliament, with discussions underway with the Greens and Crossbench.
This is our plan. We will put it to the Parliament. We're putting it through, we will put it first to the House of Representatives. We will put it to the Senate, and I'm very, very confident that people will look at the two plans which are there.
The WA Premier says his party has no qualms about taking on the star power of TV personality turned political hopeful Basil Zemes in the 2025 election. But the fight seems to be heating up, with the public set to be the real winners as Roger Cook focuses on more cost of living relief.
If you ask the Premier, the Labor Party has nothing to fear from Basil Zemes.
It's not about celebrity status, it's not about personalities, it's about policies, and it's about who is best to protect the Western Australian economy and Western Australian jobs.
But it's clear his debut has some in Labor rattled. Member for Perth John Kerry taking to social media to accuse Mr Zemes of having political aspirations with no substance.
Attention, Transperth passengers.
The government on the front foot unveiling cost of living measures, free public transport tickets for school students starting next month.
Monday to Friday when they're travelling to and from school for the entire school year.
And free travel for everyone on Sunday. Playing well with commuters who took the train with the Premier.
It's a great incentive and a great thought.
It was amazing. I think it's really good. I think it helps out a lot of people.
It's a generous offer that the Premier denies is a sweetener.
We will continue to do whatever we need to ease the burden of cost of living. And one of the commitment I made when I was elected is that we'd keep our economy strong and support those who are doing it tough.
The opposition says it's too little too late, not to mention a rip-off of a Liberal Party policy from 2021, with one key difference.
Our policy did include seniors, and quite clearly this government needs to do much more to help the 400,000 households in Western Australia that are struggling to put food on the table.
With more than a year to go for the 2025 election, chances are it'll be the public that's the biggest winner out of this new political tilt. Rebecca Trigger, ABC News.
Police are looking to speak to witnesses who may have seen a child being approached and led away by suspicious strangers at a popular jetty in Bigton late on Australia Day. Officers say a group of 3 approached a 4-year-old girl near the busy Point Walter jetty around 5:30 on Friday afternoon before walking towards the car park with her. It's believed 2 teenage girls flagged down the father, who quickly intervened. The trio has been described as being possibly of Asian descent and includes a woman in her 30s, a male in his 30s and another male wearing white Crocs and with a missing tooth. It's being treated as a serious incident.
Obviously, we would like these people to come forward and explain their actions. Whether they be malicious or just inappropriate and they don't know, we want them to explain those actions. And obviously it's just important for parents to keep an eye on their kids, especially around these busy periods.
The majority of economists are predicting the Reserve Bank to start cutting interest rates later this year. But as Alan Kohler explains, a unique problem confronting Australia could see borrowers waiting another year for any rate relief.
The big economic question for 2024 is whether the Reserve Bank will start cutting interest rates this year. Futures market traders and most economists think it will. I'm not so sure about that, but what does the RBA itself think? Well, its most recent economic forecasts assume that interest rates will be 1% lower than they are now by the end of 2025. They don't say when that process begins, but I'd say we're talking next year. So what were those economic forecasts for the end of 2024? Inflation, 3.3%, down from 5.4. Unemployment, 4.2%, up from 3.9. GDP growth, 2%, down from 2.1. Now, if the Reserve Bank thinks it's going to make those numbers by the end of the year, there'll probably be rate cuts. If they don't, there won't be. It's as simple as that.
What's not so simple is Australia's unique problem. Although the Reserve Bank of Australia has hiked interest rates less than the US and the UK, our mortgage rates overall have gone up much more because we've got more variable rate loans than anyone else. As a result, there's been a huge increase in the number of Australians going backwards. Meanwhile, our population is growing faster than anyone else's, creating the illusion of economic growth, even though there are plenty of people having recessions of their own. So Australia's interest rates will be cut less than most countries.
But look, we'll get inflation down without a recession, and that's rare and good, as long as you're not one of those having a personal recession.
18 months after cannabis was decriminalised in Thailand, the new government has vowed to end its recreational use. Authorities want to restrict it to medicinal purposes only, releasing a draft bill which outlines hefty fines and prison sentences for offenders. Doctors have welcomed the move, but the owners of the thousands of dispensaries that have sprung up and the farmers who supply them are worried. As Southeast Asia correspondent Lauren Day reports, some say it's too late to put the genie back in the bottle.
What was once unimaginable is now unavoidable. 18 months after Thailand became the first country in Asia to decriminalise cannabis, more than 1 million people have registered to grow it and over 6,000 dispensaries have opened to sell it.
It's kind of like cowboy a little bit at the moment that everyone is doing kind of like whatever they want. You know, even like as a company, I think we're looking forward to kind of like a little bit of tightening up.
Pasit Chulajata had been working at a cannabis farming business since the drug was legalised for medicinal purposes in 2018. But even the budding industry itself was shocked when it was decriminalised.
Honestly, we were as surprised. Even, you know, as a person that's been in the industry, we were really, really surprised.
The new government has now released draft legislation which would end recreational use and limit it to medicinal purposes, and crack down on so-called cannabis cowboys.
There's been some like negative pushback, but I think the government is on the verge to kind of like tighten it up, which can help, you know, protect people that needs to be protected, like young kids.
The move has been welcomed by doctors who say they're dealing with the impacts of the weed boom.
Tea time Tea time of the patient go to the hospital because of the side effect of the cannabis.
Dr. Smith is a forensic toxicologist and part of his job is screening dead bodies for traces of illicit drugs. At his hospital, in the first 3 months after legalisation, 126 people were admitted after using cannabis. 7 of them were intubated, 1 died.
The cannabis is not perfectly safe. Someone have the side effect to the cannabis, like the psychosis or something like that. And someone use it and have like the heart attack and die.
Cannabis or weed can't kill people. No way, man.
Dispensary managers like Top believe some of the health claims are exaggerated, but he agrees some regulation is needed.
We need more like a real action from the government, what we can do or what we cannot do, or what we can really sell or what we cannot sell.
It's hard to walk down the streets of Bangkok without seeing or smelling this booming industry. It was estimated that by 2025 it'd be worth about 2 billion Australian dollars, but it's unclear what these new regulations will mean for business.
I think Thailand has come quite a bit too far, for everything to go back, and I think the government kind of know that as well. And I think we can do really well, to help to use cannabis as to boost the economy, and I think they also know that.
Top says his business will comply with any new laws, but it's too late to put the genie back in the bottle.
It's about the love, about the passion, and then about the sharing. If you are the real smoker, if you are you call the cannabis lover, you will know what I'm talking about, my man. You will know, brah.
The Thai cabinet will now assess the draft legislation and public submissions before the bill goes before Parliament. Lauren Day, ABC News, Bangkok.
A group led by an Esperance mother and daughter is raising money for ocean conservation by turning marine debris into works of art. The 10 Mile Collective launched its first exhibition this week after locals spent weeks weaving rope and rubbish into new items.
Esperance is world famous for its pristine beaches, but it's not immune from plastic pollution.
We'll come out here sometimes and spend hours just in a 10-metre square kind of radius.
Local mother and daughter Michelle and Sam Crisp come to 10 Mile Lagoon almost every day to pick up rubbish. But one day last year, they got more than they bargained for.
Here's this huge whale carcass-sized piece of marine debris down the end of the beach, and yeah, that was the start.
It's probably from a long-line fishing vessel, so it was huge amounts of various sized rope.
The community rallied to get it off the beach, but deciding what to do with it proved harder.
Definitely super important not to just put the 5 tonnes of marine debris directly into landfill. That's just contributing to a different kind of issue in a different landscape.
We thought this is an ideal opportunity to make it a community project. So we've been feverishly making baskets, and Sam's made a gorgeous hat. We make earrings.
They've also visited schools and gone to local markets to teach others. This week, they opened an exhibition to raise funds for marine conservation group Tangaroa Blue.
When I walked through that door and I saw that colour, I thought, wow, this is the Esperance colours.
I think it's absolutely fantastic, and I think it's a real wake-up call to us all.
They raised $1,500 for the non-profit on opening night.
Quite often, environmental issues these days can be quite overwhelming. So to have a local issue like this and quite a simple, feasible solution to it, it's so epic to have the whole community engaged.
The exhibition will run for the next 4 weeks. Emily Smith, ABC News, Esperance.
Now to Tom Wildie for sport. And Tom, incredible scenes at the Gabba in the second test.
Yeah, the West Indies pulled off a historic win, Bree, beating Australia by 8 runs, their first test victory in Australia since 1997. Second gamer Shamar Joseph, playing with a foot injury, tore through Australia's batters, taking 7 wickets as Australia was bowled out for 207 to level the series 1-1. Steve Smith carried his bat for the hosts, finishing unbeaten on 91. After Australia lost 2 wickets late on day 3, day 4 was set for a fascinating tussle. The hosts requiring 156 runs, the West Indies needing to take 8 wickets, assuming the rain stayed away. The tourists kept the scoring down in the opening half hour, but then things loosened in the field.
Oh no.
In humid conditions, Steve Smith and Cameron Green received numerous drinks.
More drinks.
Which the umpires monitored closely to keep the game moving.
I think umpire Menon's going to come down and say, hurry up, boys.
The introduction of Shamar Joseph, who was playing with a toe injury, got things going.
Catch it! No, too high, too quick. 4 more.
Green looked comfortable in the middle as Australia closed in on victory.
That's a classic straight.
Until Joseph cracked the door open for the tourists.
Oh, Bo, that's a ripper.
That brought Travis Head to the crease following his first innings golden duck.
Oh, it's King Bear for Travis Head. Shamar Joseph. Can you believe what we're seeing here at the Gabba?
Smith's time as an opener has been underwhelming, but the veteran showed a glimpse of what he can offer with a well-constructed half-century. But Joseph kept his side's hopes alive.
Yes, he's done it! It's away, big catch, big wicket!
With the game on a knife's edge, Alzari Joseph dropped Nathan Lyon before removing him with the very next ball. Smith tried to club Australia to victory. But at the other end, Josh Hazlewood couldn't keep out Shamar Joseph.
I feel like we win the series. Even though it's 1-1, I feel like we win the entire series with this test. And it's really amazing for my teammates. Must give up another shout out to them. They're really encouraging. And, you know, I'm glad that I make them proud.
It's the West Indies' first test win in Australia since 1997. Russian Daniil Medvedev and Italian Yannick Sinner are locked in a tight tussle in the men's final of the Australian Open in Melbourne. The Russian started strongly and looks set to cruise to a second major title after racing through the first 2 sets to take a 6-3, 6-3 lead. But Sinner didn't cave in the third, digging in to break Medvedev and take the set 6-4. This is Sinner's first major final, while Medvedev won the US Open in 2021. Meantime, Aryna Sabalenka spent her night drinking and dancing after winning back-to-back singles titles. And Matt Ebden continued Australia's dominance in the men's doubles when he won the final alongside 43-year-old partner Rowan Bapana. This morning, Sabalenka paraded her silverware in front of the media and fans in Melbourne.
Guys, watch out.
Cheers to the champ. Showered in glory 2 years running, the Australian Open Queen posed at the Royal Exhibition Gardens, embracing a trophy her and her team have barely put down.
I mean, of course it was my idea. I put them under pressure to make this video happen.
Sabalenka does things her own way and says prioritising having fun has been key to her success.
Yeah, I have, I would say, the craziest team. And as I said on the interview, we all had a little drink.
On the court, though, Sabalenka is ruthless.
Wow.
Her powerful win over China's Qin Wenjing put a full stop on a perfect tournament in which she did not drop a set.
Sabalenka defends the title.
The star Belarusian became the first woman to defend her title in more than a decade. Sabalenka paid tribute to her late father. Together, they set a goal of winning 2 Grand Slams before she turned 25.
You're my biggest motivation, and everything I'm doing for you.
Zheng's disappointment was palpable, but the 21-year-old will break into the top 10 tomorrow as her star at home and abroad continues to rise.
It's my first final and I'm feeling a little bit pity, but that's how it is.
And an Australian has tasted title success this year. Matt Ebden and India's Rohan Bapana claimed the doubles crown, winning in straight sets. At 43 years old, Bapana is the oldest man in the Open era to win a major men's doubles title.
You know, you definitely, got to know how old I am, I'm sure.
Age truly really is not even a number for this guy.
Ebden's victory made it 3 consecutive years of Australian men lifting the doubles trophy. Tom Maddox, ABC News, Melbourne Park.
South Africa's women have secured a first ever victory over Australia in any format, defeating the hosts by 6 wickets in their second T20 international in Canberra. The Proteas restricted Australia to a total of 6 for 142. Grace Harris, the top scorer, with a late cameo of 31 runs. Skipper Laura Woolvart anchored the innings for South Africa with the bat, scoring an unbeaten half-century. Chloe Trion knocked the winning boundary in the 19th over, with the breakthrough victory coming after 23 matches over 27 years. The multi-format series continues with a third T20 international in Hobart on Tuesday. Australia's men's and women's rugby sevens sides have both lost in the final in the Perth leg of the international series at a sold-out Perth Oval. The women's side traded tries with Ireland in their final before Ireland hit the front just before half-time. Australia levelled the score early in the second half, but couldn't stay with the Irish, who sealed the 19-14 victory late in the second half. The Australian men were completely outclassed by Argentina, thrashed 31-5 in their final. Australia's sole try was purely a consolation, coming when the match was already decided. The Socceroos will take on Indonesia in their Asian Cup round of 16 clash in Qatar tonight. Graham Arnold's men finished on top of Group B with victories over India and Syria, as well as a draw with Uzbekistan. The Socceroos are aiming to lift the trophy for a second time, having first won it in 2015 in Sydney. Arnold says Asian tournaments are getting harder as his side is wary of Indonesia.
Asia is growing and the Asian tournament's getting harder and harder. And Indonesia, as you said, it's not a David v Goliath battle. It's two teams that will go out there and give it their best.
Perth Glory have scored a dramatic late equaliser to earn a point in its A-League men's clash away to Macarthur. After trailing early, the Glory continued to show plenty of fight amid its off-field financial issues with an equaliser from Mustafa Amini. Just 10 minutes later, Macarthur would retake the lead, also from the penalty spot. But with just 2 minutes of stoppage time remaining, veteran attacker David Williams took it upon himself to salvage a point for Perth. Australia will take on England in the final of the Netball Nations Cup after a clean sweep of victories in the pool stage. The Diamonds faced Uganda for the first time in their history in their final group game and were challenged early by one of World Netball's big improvers. Australia settled from there, though, with Donnell Wallam's accurate shooting leading it to a 14-point win. In the later game, a key intercept by England in the dying seconds helped clinch a dramatic 1-point win over New Zealand. That has set up a rematch of last year's World Cup final against Australia. The Perth Heat remains on track to make the Australian Baseball League Grand Final. The Heat leads 3-2 in the fifth inning of tonight's deciding third game of the semi-final series against the Brisbane Bandits. A stark contrast to last night's Big Game 2 defeat. After being held scoreless in Game 1, the Bandits wasted no time getting on the score sheet with a first inning 2-run homer. The match was tied 5-all in the sixth when Brisbane piled on 6 runs to take a commanding lead. The win was capped off in the seventh with another homer as the Bandits claimed a 12-9 win. And Brie, let's hope the Heat can get it done, and that is the latest in sport.
Thank you, Tom. And it was a lovely, sunny, mildish day for the city with a bit of heat ahead. Right now in town it's 24 degrees and humidity is 58%. The temperature in Perth dropped down to 17 degrees around 4:45 this morning, rising to a top of 27 at 1:30 this afternoon. The state's coolest spot was Collie East with a minimum of 9 degrees. The hottest maximum of 40 also reached in the south today at Norseman. Marble Bar, Warburton and Paraburdoo in the north hitting tops of 40 as well. Cloud sweeping moisture over the Kimberley in a low pressure trough is bringing showers and storms. Cloud in the southwest with a front is causing light showers, clear in the west and interior with a ridge of high pressure. On the synoptic, you can see that broad area of low pressure extending over the Pilbara coast to the north interior. A high pressure ridge will rapidly develop along the south coast behind a weak cold front slipping away to the southeast of the state. Taking a quick look around the country, tomorrow troughs and lows will generate rain, showers and storms over parts of the Northern Territory, Queensland and New South Wales northeast. Onshore flow should bring a few showers to New South Wales southeast, clearer elsewhere under a high pressure ridge. Back to WA and in the north, showers and thunderstorms over the Kimberley, north and east interior and inland eastern Pilbara, mostly during the afternoon and evening. A mix of sunny and cloudy skies across central parts. Sunny with mild to warm temperatures across the southwest, cooler across other southern parts. In Perth, sunny, a top of 30 degrees tomorrow after an overnight low of 17. Sunrise will be at 22 minutes to 6, setting at 20 past 7. And looking ahead, sunny and hot, 36 on Tuesday, heating up to 40 degrees by Thursday, before it's set to cool down slowly again, getting down to the lower 20s, high 20s towards the end of the week. And that's ABC News for now. Pamela Medlin will be back with you tomorrow. In the meantime, you can stay up to date with ABC News Online, or you can catch the news anytime on ABC iView. It's been a pleasure having your company. Take care and good night.